The skies over the Middle East are getting more crowded by the day. A simple count on military radar right now yields suffocating numbers. Hundreds of next-generation combat aircraft, nearly 100 aerial refueling tankers, and 2 massive carrier strike groups looming offshore. Those numbers easily point to one single conclusion. A massive strike of unprecedented scale is imminent. And the target of that strike is none other than Pickaxe. A fortified mountain deep inside Iranian territory, sheltering a subterranean nuclear facility buried under hundreds of feet of solid granite. But that is only if you fall into the numbers trap. Look closer at that sprawling formation, and a critical paradox emerges. Why did not the Pentagon simply send 100 of its most advanced, top-tier aircraft of the exact same model? Why, in a single force, do you see stealth F-35 fighters, heavy-hitting B-1B Lancers, insanely expensive B-2 Spirit bombers, and even commercial Gulfstream jets packed with classified electronics? The U.S. did not assemble this mismatched fleet just to put on a show of force. The core of the issue is not the count, it is this strange diversity. Because every single aircraft taking off today is the sole answer to a physics problem that the plane beside it is utterly powerless to solve. This is not a story about counting warplanes. This is a complete breakdown of the truth behind the most complex war machine in human history and the fatal Achilles heel it is desperately trying to hide. But to understand why this machine was pieced together in such a bizarre way, we first have to uncover an absolute law that every American aerospace engineer is forced to trade off against. Every war machine on Earth must obey a supreme law. A binding contract forged into every design blueprint that no engineer can ever escape. It is the brutal law of physical trade-offs. Not a single aircraft on this planet can simultaneously possess all 4 elements: absolute stealth, massive payload, extreme range, and the power to drill through deep subterranean rock. Want stealth like the F-35 or F-22? The design forces you to shrink the internal weapon base to hide from radar, meaning it cannot carry multi-ton bombs. Want to haul dozens of tons of ordnance like the heavy-hitting B-1B Lancer? You must sacrifice stealth, turning the aircraft into a massive, glowing target on enemy radar screens. Want to carry a 15-ton bomb that punches through 300 feet of solid rock like the B-2 Spirit? The price tag is an aircraft so outrageously expensive that the Pentagon only owns 20 of them, making every single sortie a high-stakes gamble for survival. Geometry and physics slam one door shut the moment they open another. This is not a matter of budget or ambition, it is the absolute enforcement of nature. That is why, when a campaign faces a web of problems all at once, no single aircraft design can serve as a universal key. The more problems you need to solve, the more mismatched your fleet becomes. But this division of labor leads to an even harsher truth.
From the heartland
All of those high-priced, cutting-edge strike machines would instantly turn into useless blocks of metal without one specific group of aircraft. A group that makes up nearly half of the entire deployment in the Middle East, yet fires not a single shot. What is the truth behind this invisible force quietly holding the life and death of the entire fleet in its hands? To dissect the war machine in the Middle East, break it down into 3 force groups. And the first group, the only one plastered across the media, is the one making the heaviest trade-offs. This is the sharp end, the strike package. Even inside this group, the mission is fractured. The F-16 Wild Weasel lifts off with what amounts to a suicide mission. Play the bait. It dives into contested airspace, tempting enemy radar to switch on, only to lock onto the signal and kill it with an anti-radiation missile. No stealth, no heavy payload, it trades survival on a razor's edge just to clear the path. The F-35 and F-22 serve as airborne eyes and air dominance killers. But to maintain their stealth profiles, an F-35's internal bay holds just 2 large weapons. It cannot carpet bomb, and it cannot drill into the earth. And that is where the pairing of the B-1B Lancer and B-2 Spirit delivers a masterclass in energy distribution. The B-1B Lancer is a sledgehammer, carrying 35 tons of ordnance, the heaviest payload in the U.S. Air Force. The B-1B can turn an entire base into a cratered wasteland with dozens of Mark 82 bombs. But its energy is spread thin across a wide footprint. Rain every single bomb onto the top of Iran's Pickaxe Mountain, and the B-1B barely scuffs the granite surface. The B-2 Spirit, on the other hand, is an armor-piercing spike. It carries just two 15-ton GBU-57 bunker busters. Most of that weight is not explosive, it is dense steel casing designed to drive pure kinetic energy into a single point, punching through hundreds of feet of concrete and solid rock. The B-1B flattens the surface, the B-2 drives into the deep. Two designs on opposite ends of a physical axis, neither capable of doing the other's job. But here lies the turning point of the entire campaign. Every single high-priced striker in that force, from stealth fighters to heavy bombers, falls straight out of the sky without the second group. A fleet that fires not a single shot. Look at the nearly 100 KC-135 and KC-46 flying gas stations. A fighter's combat radius is chained to a brutal ratio. Internal fuel capacity against burn rate. Staged from safe bases beyond enemy missile range. An F-35 or F-15E flames out halfway into Iran without mid-air refueling. Pull those tankers out of the sky, and the world's most advanced air fleet turns into multi-billion-dollar ornaments bolted to a runway. Alongside them fly electronic warfare aircraft like the EA-37B. Instead of destroying radar with high explosives, it pours gigawatts of jamming power to drown out the enemy's returning signal. A radar flooded with white noise is completely blind. This invisible force does not score the points, but it dictates whether the game can even be played. Yet, on the other side of the chessboard, Aaron understands this law all too well. Tehran's asymmetric doctrine does not waste money building fighters to dogfight an F-35. Instead, long-range air defense systems like the Khordad-15 or Armin are engineered to ignore small stealth ghosts and lock directly onto the massive aerial tankers trailing behind. Pushing those tankers back just a few hundred kilometers forces U.S. fighters to run dry before they even reach their targets. Still, both the strike package and its invisible backbone share another fatal vulnerability. They require a launching pad to take off. And that pad is the exact set of coordinates locked into thousands of Iranian ballistic missiles. How do you protect a Leviathan force against saturation missile strikes? To keep this machine alive, the third group must step in. The launching pads and the survival shield. The most expensive strike assets become useless the moment their runways are cratered. A land base is a fixed set of coordinates, and a fixed coordinate is just a set of numbers waiting inside an enemy missile's guidance computer. Solve the math once, and it stays solved forever. That is why two carrier strike groups, the USS Abraham Lincoln and USS George H.W. Bush, must be on station. Steaming at over 30 knots, the circle of ocean a carrier can hide and expands by hundreds of square miles every single hour. A carrier survives not because of thick armor, but because it refuses to remain a static coordinate. However, the real war of attrition is happening in the air defense magazines. Because on the other side of the chessboard, Iran's counter-strike is just as ruthless. Rather than hunting carriers across open oceans, thousands of low-cost shade drones and sea-skimming cruise missiles are unleashed with a single purpose. Force air defense systems like Patriot THAAD or Aegis to burn multi-million-dollar interceptors until their magazines run dry. And instead of trying to shoot down stealth fighters mid-air, waves of Fateh ballistic missiles lock onto fixed runways on the ground. The exact spots where every high-priced aircraft is forced to land. Iran strikes the foundation, not the roof. This economic exchange is sheer suicide for the defense. Interceptor stockpiles are draining at an alarming rate, and that is the real reason the B-1B Lancer stages all the way from RAF Fairford in the UK. As high-cost precision magazines run dry, the B-1B is called in to drop low-cost Mark 82 gravity bombs from high altitude. keeping the pressure on without bankrupting strategic missile stockpiles. One airframe, two jump. Yet it remains utterly powerless against Iran's nuclear mountain. That is why the B-2 Spirit is an irreplaceable link.
The first flights.
Only now, when all three groups and their strategic counter moves stand side by side, does the big picture fully come into focus. The strength of the U.S. Air Force does not lie in how many aircraft it flies, but in how many links it can chain together. A force built for one job has a single point of failure. A force that can solve 10 problems at once is formidable. Yet that very diversity comes with a dangerous price tag: systemic brittleness. It is a chain forged from 10 high-strength links. A strike only lands if the tanker takes off, the jammer blinds the radar, and the defensive shield holds the runway. The Pentagon can solve 10 problems at once, but it cannot afford to fail at a single one. Iran does not need to shoot down an F-35 or a B-2 bomber. They only need to snap the weakest link in the logistics chain, and a multi-hundred-billion-dollar machine collapses. The crowded sky over the Middle East was never a measure of how strong the force is. It is a map showing how many survival problems the U.S. must solve all at once. Counting warplanes only shows you the size of the machine. Only by unpeeling every physical link do you see the fragility hiding behind the power of a superpower. Looking at this hyper-complex war machine, what is your take? Is a system chained together by 10 perfect links absolute power, or is it the ultimate kill, ease, heal in a prolonged conflict? Drop your analytical perspective in the comments below. And if you value deep dives into geopolitics and military doctrine like this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. That is the best way to ensure you never miss our next analysis. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.